Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, the creator and host of the award-winning podcast that you're listening to right now. Thank you so much, called Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. It is a daily podcast, 365 days a year, and each day we talk to an author about all of the things related to their career, their book, their life, and more in 30 minutes or less, because who has time? I am now an author myself, although I wasn't when I started this podcast, and you can get my new memoir, Bookends, a memoir of love, loss, and literature, wherever books are sold starting July 1st. And my children's book, Princess Charming. You can learn more about me at zibbyowens.com, but really you're here to learn more about the authors, and that is what we're going to do. Also, be sure to check out all the other podcasts in the Zcast Podcast Network. You can learn more at zcastnetwork.com and definitely check out those shows as well. Sarah Pinborough is the author of Insomnia, a novel. Sarah is a New York Times bestselling author and Sunday Times #1 and internationally bestselling author who has published in over 25 territories worldwide. Having published more than 25 novels across various genres, she also has recent books, including Behind Her Eyes, which was a Netflix movie, Cross Her Heart for UK television, and 13 Minutes with Netflix. Sarah was the 2009 winner of the British Fantasy Award for Best Short Story, and also the 2010 and 2014 winner of the British Fantasy Award for Best Novella. She has been shortlisted 4 times for Best Novel and is also a screenwriter who has written for the BBC. She's currently working on 3 TV projects and the film adaptation of The Death House. Her latest novel, Dead to Her, is a dark and twisty sexy tale of hidden secrets and revenge in high society Savannah and has been sold for TV in the US and now, of course, Insomnia. Sarah lives in the historic town of Stony Stratford, the home of the Cock and Bull story, with her dog, Ted. Welcome, Sarah. Thank you so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to discuss Insomnia, a novel.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is so timely because I feel like I am often up in the middle of the night, and this is something that we all sort of have in common. Everyone I talk to, it's like my whole team. I'm like, I was up from 2 to 5. Well, I was up at 4, and I was up at and I couldn't fall asleep. And there's always something. So,
and it's always women. It's always women as well. I mean, I was in the park this morning with my dog, and I saw a woman who lives on my street, and she said to me, "Oh, 4 o'clock this morning," and I was like, "Yeah, I was 4 o'clock yesterday. I managed till 5:30 today." Yeah. And I was like, the whole street, we might as well just meet up, and all the women, and just have a cup of tea at 5.
Yeah,
you know,
so
because
true.
we're all awake. It's crazy.
It is crazy. I do have to say, my husband has terrible insomnia, so it's not.
Oh, good.
He's
good.
my one case. Yeah, good.
He's taking it for the team.
The one man. Although I have to say, he doesn't really talk about it, which means I really should not be talking about it here myself on this podcast. But I feel like women are much more likely to wake up and talk about it than men. They'll just be like, okay, off to do whatever. These are terrible generalizations, but
some men have a pride in it as well. It's like, oh, I only slept for 4 hours last night. And I'm like, wow, way. I would rather have 7. You know?
Well, I love how you take this very common thing and fictionalize, make it part of the backdrop of this story. Well, not even the backdrop, how insomnia can lead to madness, essentially. And like, what does that even mean? I feel like I can relate to like, when you're really tired.
When you research it, it's crazy. Like, I mean, I lack sleep, but I never go kind of completely without for days. But people worry about having no water or food, but no sleep will kill you faster than anything else. You know, within 3 days, you're hallucinating. I mean, that's crazy, isn't it?
It's true.
So, yeah.
It almost makes you want to try it, doesn't it?
I know. I remember being a kid and staying up for 24 hours. Yeah. And then, you know, like when I was like 9 or 10, a friend of mine, and we had a sleepover and we did it. And that was hard work at 9. So I don't know how trying to do 3 days would be. I think I'd pass out.
Although I have to say, when I was going to sleep last night, I told my husband, he's in LA right now. And I was like, all right, well, I've now been up for 20 hours. So I think I'm going to go to sleep.
But don't you find your heart kind of kicks in as if to say, okay, we're staying awake then?
Oh, yeah.
And
I could barely
go to sleep.
Yeah. It was,
had
terrible. To read, you know. Can I read this one passage, which totally summarizes my headspace when all of these things happen? It's just one of many great descriptions, but I put the kettle on and make a chamomile tea. Maybe I should put vodka in it, like Michelle suggested. I stare at the booze cupboard for a moment too long, more tempted than I should be before turning away. She drank when she didn't sleep, meaning
character's mom. The kettle clicks off and I pour and then glance at the back door once more as the tea steeps. It is locked, isn't it? Yes. Yes. I check again. This is ridiculous. I stop myself before the word crazy. This is not crazy. This is a blip. Too much on my mind. Maybe it's even hormonal. The start of the run-up to the change. I roll my head around on my shoulders and then sip the hot drink. I look at the clock. 2:05. Creeping closer to Monday morning already.
We've all been there.
So maybe I should back up so you can tell listeners the plot of Insomnia.
Okay, well, I'm terrible at this. So I'm going to apologize to your listeners in advance. But it's basically the story of a woman called Emma, who is a very successful businesswoman. She's a lawyer, and she's married to a stay-at-home dad. And she has a 17-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. And on the surface, everything is perfect. But, she's pedaling hard under the water and is, trying to manage everything. Her husband's getting a little bit unhappy with being at home all the time, problems with the kids. And as she approaches her 40th birthday, she stops sleeping, which for anybody else would be a blip. But for Emma, her own mother stopped sleeping about 2 weeks before her 40th birthday and did something really, really terrible. And she always sort of implied to Emma that the same thing would happen to her. So Emma is now in this sort of cycle of, am I going crazy or is someone messing with me? And, is it possible that both things are happening? Yeah. So she kind of is the ultimate sort of unreliable narrator because even she doesn't trust herself, So yeah, it's kind of, I've tried to make serious points out of a couple of tongue-in-cheek things I have with women, which for me personally, I just turned 50, so I'm a sort of a decade ahead of Emma. But women we grow up with this fear of turning 40 and getting older as if, sort of conditioned to feel like this is some big change in our lives when it's just a number. And also we have a real fear of turning into our mothers, which I think is also kind of weird because until you're 12, your mum's the center of your universe. And then suddenly you're kicking back and this poor woman who's done everything for you becomes the last person in the world you want to be like, which is very strange. So I kind of have taken those two themes and played around in a sort of more serious way with them.
So true. I feel like I'm 46. And so I was afraid of 40. And now, although not 100% afraid, because my mother had always told me that her life got good in her 40s. And so I was always holding out. I'm like, what's going to happen in my 40s? And actually my 40s have been great. But I will say, I look at pictures and people are like, even other people, they're like, you guys look like twins. And I'm like, no.
Or you hear yourself saying something that sounds like something your mom would say. And you're like, no, I'm much younger and freer. And, I start saying judgmental things.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's my mother speaking.
Meanwhile, my mother has a younger looking face, I feel like at this point than I do because of whatever she's doing. So, she's just blessed, I think. And anyway, it's very funny as we circle the age drain here together. You did have one little passage and then I'll stop reading, but you said 40 has always loomed like a specter in my life. Hold on, I can't even read this. Case in point.
You've got vodka in that tea, haven't you?
I have no vodka, but I can't read. So anyway, my glasses are now on. 40 has always loomed like a specter in my life, more so for me than for Phoebe, because Phoebe was never called the mad child by our mother. It was me she'd whisper to sometimes, that I'd go mad like her, hissed in my face as her fingers dug too tightly into my arms, that I had the bad blood too. It ran in our family. Dun, dun, dun. Oops.
That's like making all other families seem quite normal.
Right. Okay, so you took things that were going on in your life, you turned them into fiction, you've written many books, best-selling author. How did this whole thing start? Take me back.
Oh, God. Way back.
Go back in the day.
23. I think anybody who writes for a living has always been a writer from childhood, because I think it's the kind of job, if you're lucky, you have success. And if you're very lucky, you can make a living. But a lot of people, it doesn't work that way, but they still write books. So I think it's got to be in your blood to do it. So I always kind of wrote short stories and bits and pieces, but it was only when I was about 30, I sort of sat down to write a whole book. And I wrote a horror novel because I grew up with Stephen King, Dean Koontz, who you had on. And, I grew up on sort of horror, the Pan book of ghost stories and all these kind of things. I was always scared of the dark. I never slept as a child. So I started out writing horror for the American market for a company called Leisure. that are no longer in existence, but they were a mass market paperback publisher. So I kind of learned a few things there. And then I've just sort of continued on. I mean, that was nearly 20 years ago now. It's crazy. I still think I'm new, and then obviously Behind Her Eyes came along and that sort of changed everything for me,
So tell me about that. What was that like?
Well, it was a really interesting journey because I was contracted I was with two other publishers, Orion and Quercus, and I owed each a book. And I was at this big writers' convention in London at the O2 Centre. So it was really massive. And I was hearing people getting really good deals and stuff. And I've never been a person to be envious of other deals because it's such a roller, swings and roundabouts. One person's success does not stop anybody else's, But I was thinking, oh God, am I ever going to have my moment? Is my shelf life coming to an end? Because if you're sitting in that, if you're not getting paid enough, you don't get the marketing. So you don't get, how it goes. It's like, that the machine has to work in your favor. And I thought, well, I'm getting these kind of mid-list deals, so I'm never going to break out. And are they going to stop buying my books? And then there was an editor at HarperCollins called Natasha Barden, who I knew socially. And she texted me and she said, do you want to come for dinner with Joe Abercrombie and a couple of people tonight? And I was like, well, I think I'm going to go home. I'm, a bit tired. She said, well, why don't we meet for a coffee now? So we met and obviously had a beer, not a coffee. And she then said, we want to publish you at HarperCollins. We don't think you're being published right, blah, blah, blah. So for me, this was like, oh, dream come true. But I owed these other books. So I had to buy my way out of one, which was not a pleasant experience. But I said to her, I haven't really got anything. I haven't got an idea. And she said, well, come up with something that I can take to the publishing meeting in 10 days. She said, it doesn't have to be brilliant, which means it has to be, she's not going to sell something that's terrible. She's giving me this really rubbish idea. So I was like, oh God. So I went away and I wanted to write about affairs. I was in my early 40s and I wanted to write about dynamics of long-term relationships and all the worst parts of love, if you know what I mean, because we always talk about love as this great thing, but actually women get murdered because of obsessive love partners. People, and men as well, people get murdered over love and it's not always a good thing. So I started playing around with A Couple with Secrets because I've been reading all these Gone Girl kind of books and really getting into it. Sorry, I talk very fast and I do waffles.
No, I love it. Keep going.
Give me the cut-off signal.
Nope. No, don't cut off.
So then I was like, oh, well, maybe they've murdered someone in the past. And I was looking at all this and I just thought, wow, it's not that original. There's nothing in here that says that it's mine. It could be any number of thrillers. And then I just, the ending, well, actually what I did was, this makes me sound like an alcoholic and I don't actually drink very much, but it had been a really bad week. I'd been looking after my friend's dog and I'd had to have it put down. Another friend of mine who'd been dying died. And I'm trying to come up with this book. And I was just like, I've got nothing. So I went to the pub and got a glass of wine and thought, it's my big opportunity and I've already blown it. And then I just got the ending. I sort of started to think about a murder. And then I thought, this could work. So yeah. And then when I pitched it, they were originally going to publish it under the fantasy imprint. And then they said, no, we can play this as a straight thriller and sell it as a straight thriller and then let people be surprised by it, which did work. So, it was love or hate, but yeah, it did work.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So then how did you feel when that took off and tell me about that
It was crazy because obviously, things like New York Times and Sunday Times, they'd never been in my I never looked at it. I was never expected to be on those lists. So it was very strange. And very exciting and great. And then obviously we sold the TV to Left Bank and that's all gone really well. I'm writing Insomnia for Left Bank as we speak.
Oh my gosh, no way.
Yeah. So it did. That book did change my life really, but I'm glad it wasn't my first book. Mm-hmm. You see people who have that big success with the first book and they think this is publishing rather than actually most people are getting like 20,000 for a book, 30,000 tops, it's a nice figure. And then, I found it fascinating, the shift in things. Like for years, I'd been going to festivals and I'd pay my own way and I'd pay my hotel, or even if they were paying for part of it after a little while, I got myself there. I got myself to the event because I'm a grown up. And then suddenly they're like, oh, do you need me to come on the train with you? It's like, I'm not your grandma. I can get a train by myself, But suddenly it's like when you don't need them to give you the money, everyone wants to give you the money for things. And I kind of am like, with all due respect, people who've got a bestseller don't necessarily need the publisher to pay the train fare, but the person 4 rungs down the ladder does. So I'm kind of like, they should maybe shift that. I know it doesn't work that way because they want to fluff you and make you feel special, but it's also crazy. You spend all those years scrimping to go places, and then suddenly, when you don't really need to go, people want to pay.
Interesting.
But that's the world. That's my little menopausal rant for the
No, I like it. I started a publishing company, and so our books are coming out in February, and I've been trying to...
Because you're not busy enough.
Oh, stop. Anyway, I'm trying to play with different elements, and that's a really interesting point. Like everybody should be treated kind of equally.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. If you've got some, if you're publishing, I don't know, in England, I always say Ian Rankin, the poor man. I've just used him as an example because, he's at every crime confession and he's really successful, or Lee Child, someone like that. They're getting paid a fortune anyway. And I kind of think, does it really matter if you have to pay £100 for your train fare? Whereas that person who only got paid $5,000 for their book, that's a lot of money to pay, and then hotels, and, it's kind of crazy.
Good point. I'm going to stew over that. So aside from drinking heavily, what do you like to do? What do you like to do when you're not writing?
Well, the problem is, I've got a dog called Ted, and he takes up quite a lot of time.
What kind of dog?
He's a Romanian rescue. He looks like a fat fox. He was a lot of hard work, but he's a very, very sweet, lovely dog. I don't know about you. You're obviously very busy, but the pandemic kind of slowed everything down, and you just kind of, I worked, I walked my dog. And so I was 50 in March, and I think there is that thing when you hit a decade number, like 40 or 50 or 30, that you reevaluate a bit. So I've been living in my little lovely town called Stony Stratford, but I have now just taken on an apartment in London for 2 years.
Ooh.
Split my time, because I used to live in London, and I kind of miss, not in central London, it's in Chiswick, so it's kind of West London, it's a leafy suburb, but it's got the buzz, it's got lots of places, lots of things to do. So I need to try and do more, because I do just work, and you can get in that rut of it being, especially if I don't have a husband, I don't have kids, so there's no one to pull you out of it, that, you have to go and do other things. So so I've decided that at 50, and also I broke my back last year.
Oh no.
Yeah, which was a bit boring. But it just did make me reevaluate things a little bit. And so now that I'm less wobbly on my feet, I'm trying to, I think, maybe I'll go I might meet some handsome man in the park and maybe write a rom-com after that.
Oh, there you go.
As long as it's not a murder mystery.
Rom-com murder mysteries. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. Wait, how did you break your back?
Oh, it was really exciting. I was carrying a vacuum cleaner and I fell over backwards.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I hit the wall with this vacuum cleaner in a box, and I landed on my bottom holding this box, and my spine just kind of concertinaed.
Oh, my gosh.
It's sad. Yeah, it was nice. Oh.
Yeah, that is not glamorous. I think you need a new story there.
I know. I do try. I did tell someone I did it skiing, and they just looked at me and laughed and said, "You've not skied in your life." I was like, no, I'm quite a lazy person. I've got to be careful with what lie I come up for with that one.
It's really funny. Oh my gosh. Well, what about reading? Do you like to read?
Yes. I read, and I watch a lot. I've really got into watching a lot of movies and TV. I think because I'm working more in movies and TV at the moment. But yes, reading, that vanished in the pandemic. I used to always read, and then it just my concentration just went. And now I am getting back into it. You're going to ask me something I've read recently, and my brain's
I won't ask you. No.
Okay. But I haven't read, I don't, you must get this loads. You get sent a lot of proofs, and they're very similar after a little while. And sometimes you just think, okay, this is a really great thriller, but all I've done is read thrillers for 3 months. I need to stop and read something else. So I'm trying to vary my reading a little bit more. I've just bought some historical fiction, because I used to love reading historical fiction, and I haven't read any for ages. And I'm reading a lot of anthologies. Mm-hmm. So you can dip in and out.
Yep.
What did I read that I really loved last? I read the new Ruth Ware I really enjoyed. Mm-hmm. And then what did I finish the other day that I was raving about on the internet? I can't remember. menopause brain. It goes in, it comes out, it goes in, it comes out. Laura Purcell's new one, set in Victorian theatre. Yeah, it's like a ghost story / thriller, which was really interesting to read something that was a bit less who's killed my baby or my husband or whatever, like sometimes those psychological thrillers, it was slightly different. So especially when I'm writing one, I don't always want to read one, because you can get like nervous, like, oh God, this one's really good and mine's really rubbish. So
that's funny. I'm reading an anthology now too. And I feel like I've been so tired lately that it's great. But then I read one essay and then I'm like, oh, well, now I need to read the next one because this one. So then I end up reading just as much as I would have read anything else.
Have you read, there's a book called 8 Detectives.
No.
I think it's Alex Parvesi. It's really clever. And it's 8 interwoven, well, it's short stories, but there's a story going between them all as well. It's really, really, really clever. It was quite a big hit here. I'm not sure the paperback's out yet, but it was really good. So it kind of mashes up the idea of an anthology and novel, so you can do that thing of reading one, but it was really clever.
Wait, say it again. 8 strangers? No, 8. What
8 detectives.
8 detectives. This is my brain today. So
we're doing well with our brains.
Maintain information for 30 seconds. 8 detectives. Maybe now that I said it out loud, I'll remember.
Yeah, 8 detectives.
The anthology I'm reading is the actress Zosia Mamet. I don't think that's even how you pronounce it, but anyway, she got all these people to write about food and feelings. Which
oh my gosh!
Interested in.
I am a big eater of my feelings.
Yeah,
I am a massive eater of my feelings.
Yes, as am I. And so anyway, it's really interesting, and it has it has recipes, but it's people breaking up at dinner and people. It's really good. It's I'm really enjoying the different perspectives and feeling a little less crazy, perhaps myself.
That's always good. That's always helpful.
Which is always nice.
Yeah. While eating a donut, reading it.
I'm trying intermittent fasting right now, which is all the rage.
No.
Yeah.
I try and do that too, and it's.
I've done it I'm on like day 10. Let's see how long I can pull this off.
Are you doing the 16-8? Or are you doing the?
I'm not even like measuring it. I'm just like eating dinner and then I'm not eating again till like 12:30.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just not being crazy. Like, really, is there a difference between like 8 p.m. and 9 p.m.? Maybe, but whatever. I'm just not snacking at night anymore. So for me, like now that I'm not inhaling chocolate chip cookies, I'll be fine. Yeah. It's not 8 or 9.
It's like, I don't know if you ever saw, we had a show over here, which was one of my favorite things ever, called Absolutely Fabulous.
I've heard of it.
And it's these two women. They're very funny. And one of them, she comes downstairs and she's on this diet where she's eating weird things. And the daughter just looks at her, and the daughter's very sensible, and she goes, oh, mother, just eat less and move more. And the mum turns around and she went, oh, darling, if it was that easy, everyone would do it. But it's so true, isn't it? It's just so like, true. Stop snacking. They make it sound easy.
I know. It's so true. It's so true. It's all about your headspace. It's all about like, am I really motivated to do this right now? Because if I'm not, then I could try 100 things and none of them are going to work. And if I
just end up looking at cake on the computer. I just like today, I spent a lot of time looking at cake on Deliveroo and then texting my best friend saying I wanted cake. And then she orders the cake and eats the cake. And I'm still just looking at the pictures of it. And she's like, stop telling me about cake.
What is Deliveroo? Is that like a food delivery
service?
service?
My gosh, yes. Deliveroo is everything. They do like supermarkets, restaurants. You just there's like thousands of, like for my area, which is quite small, there's like maybe 150 places, and you just say what you want and they go and get it and bring it to your house.
It's called Postmates here.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, basically.
I never heard of Deliveroo, but there you go.
Facilitates all my bad
something
habits.
New. Okay, well, thank you, Sarah. This has been a blast. Thank you for making my own insomnia feel a little less problematic and all of that. I hope you have fun in London, and I would love to get a drink at some point in real life.
If you're over, I might be.
You never know about me.
Yes, definitely. It would be great fun.
Okay.
And I'm still in awe of your study.
Thank you. Thank you. And this too could be yours. You just have to rearrange your books,
Definitely. I'm not going to show you mine. It's way too messy.
No. I won't even. I won't peek. All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books.
Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Also sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com and sign up for my virtual book club and meet lots of authors on Zoom every other week. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music.